So what we're trying to see if we can cover today really is the research approaches. We will try to focus today largely on data collection, sources of data, issues around validity, and scales of measurement. So that's what I think we'll try to cover today. But we'll take it slowly because I'm well aware that the last time when we were talking to students, they were at different levels of their proposal as honor students. But also when we were talking more about the literature review and the sampling, the whole discussion was just getting too complicated. So we will try to once more take it one step at a time. Now, this is also just another way to revise our work. The principle of scientific research or science are really the three principles that we're trying to work on. Is based on the systematic observation, control, and replication. If we say something is scientific, really we mean it means the three areas, which is systematic observation, control, and replication. So you need to remember that. Nothing is accidental, nothing is all over the show, and there's an ability to replicate the work that you have done as a researcher. So what I do and what you do and what everybody else do is based on these three principles. Let's remember that this is part of what you are journeying into. So your journey now as students is to really try to work on those three principles: systematic observation, control, and replication. Now, when you look at the approaches to research, there are three types. There are three types or three approaches that are recognized. These are the known ones. I'm not yet aware if there are other methods or other approaches other than these three. It's qualitative, it's quantitative, and it's mixed methods. They are not discrete as they appear. In other words, you can't, it's not as if, you cannot work on all of them at the same time. You can work on either one of them, both of them, all of them, so it's qualitative and quantitative approach should not be viewed as rigid or as a polar opposite or dichotomy. So they are not necessarily opposing each other. They are really complementing each other where the need to complement each other are. So instead, they represent different ends of a continuum. It depends on you as a person. What are you interested in? So the mixed method one resides somewhere in the middle of the continuum because it incorporates both elements of the qualitative and the quantitative. I'm going to pause here, really. I'm going to pause here and start listening to students because I would like to believe that theoretically we can talk about this, which is what we're going to do. We're going to talk about all these methods, how to collect data, how to validate data and so forth and so on. These are the theoretical foundations that we will share. But let me just get an opportunity to listen to you, because you are now required as a student to do research, of some sort. You really have to put together a proposal of some sort, which is a research proposal. Now, it is for you really to understand this technical jargon and these technical formulations and elements that we're talking about. If we say three approaches, it's one thing to say, well, I know them. It's qualitative, it's quantitative, and it's mixed methods. But let me hear you as a student as to what do you really want to hear a little bit more about research. Everything is ready, and it is your basically this is your program. We will go into all the technical discussion, all of us, but it is important just for me to also catch up with.
Okay, from my perspective, I would like to know about more on the quantitative methods.
More on.
Quantitative methods.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Why?
Okay, my research is I'm in the engineering what is it, engineering college. So I'm going to be conducting a research on neural networks, right? to solve
Yeah.
a particular problem. So I would like to understand more on the quantitative techniques. So I mean that if I've conducted my data model, right, and then I've now applied it to that certain problem, I do
Mm.
understand that there are some metrics that you can use to actually um, measure the accuracy of that model. But what type of data would I need to present to others that are not in the field of machine learning or data science?
Okay, so what is the problem that you are addressing? What is the
For
what is
this,
the problem for which you are seeking a solution for?
basically, it's more like price forecasting. So basically, we are forecasting the prices of a certain financial instruments in the future for
Okay.
maybe a hedge fund or for an investment bank, but
Uh-huh.
utilizing a machine learning model.
Okay.
Yes, so that is
So,
my
why are you inclined? Why are you already? I'm just asking this question just for engagement, but why are you already inclined to be looking on quantitative? What is your thinking around that?
well, because it's not how can I say this? Why I'm inclined to it is because I want to acquire certain analytical evidence, you know,
Oh,
analytical evidence to present that this model can work for this particular problem. You see,
I see. I see.
especially for quantitative financial problems.
Yeah.
Yes.
So basically, you're looking at is it? I mean, if we look at the type of research, remember we said there are three principles that you can think about: the explanatory research, exploratory, or predict. Are you looking at something predictive?
It's predictive, and at the same time it's also to explore, because
Then is
for
mixed.
those.
Then is it not mixed method then?
Oh,
Because remember, once you explore and once you also predict, you are using it. Those are the two purposes why you are doing the research. So one is once you start, and if you say explore, are you not thinking? Look, I'm not changing your thinking. I'm just
no,
I'm
no,
just
I understand.
sharing. Yeah. So once you explore a phenomenon, it could suggest that little is research on the area that you are going on. Is that your understanding there? That there's very little that has been done in this area.
Yes. I think there's about it's a small amount of papers that have actually dealt with graph neural networks specifically.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now, for a proposal of this nature, I mean, if there's very little written or done, you're then going to be exploring the phenomenon a little bit more. But at the same time, I hear you saying you also want to have some kind of a predictive value to this research that which then can move into quantitative. That if
Yes.
the numbers can matter in this
Yes.
regard. Okay, all right. That sounds. Look, like I said, for me, I feel like it might just be a combination of the two. Remember, doing quantitative does not necessarily preclude you from doing qualitative. In other words, you can still collect the quantitative data, in other words, the numbers, but some of that information can also include qualitative data. For example, if I ask you, why do you think this is the case in the question, is a yes or no, and I ask you why. The why then becomes qualitative, isn't it? Because it's either yes or
Yes.
no, or agree or disagree. So you can collect both sets of data qualitatively, so that then you are beginning to look at the collection from both approaches. That's just the thinking I have. But we will, as we engage, perhaps we'll see if that would be necessary. How far are you with the proposal, though, still, if I may ask?
I'm already done with it.
Oh, you're done with the proposal. Wow.
Yes, yes, yes.
So have you, in the proposal, when you say you're done, you mean it has gone through the processes and you have said you're going to do quantitative and it's fine, right?
Um, so when I was doing it, this was just before I've actually had known that there was actually research workshops. So our professor, he was just conducting just like some crash course on how to actually compile a research for engineering, right? And then we just did some few sessions with him, and then we actually started compiling the work. But it was like step by step, you see. So meaning I
Yeah.
would tell you, okay, uh, develop your research methodology. Just tell us about that, discuss that, go into your literature review, what others have done, and then what can you actually extrapolate from that, and on and on.
Oh, okay. So
Yes,
there was some some help that you received in your journey,
yes,
which helped you to put together a proposal. Okay,
yes, yes.
that's good. Let's see if we can. Like I said, I mean, the idea here is not to convince you to change what you already have. It's just to see whether other blocks can be added to your proposal. Because at the end of the day, remember, a proposal is not cast in concrete. So when you when you work
Yes,
on it, you can. Yeah.
yes, but to be honest, I actually want to improve my research,
Okay.
because what actually happened was that I think it's this yeah, this month we need to go submit a conference paper, right?
Okay.
So I want to go back into my final report and everything to see like to improve it, because
Sorry, Prof, can Mr. Kulu just upgrade his voice a bit because it sounds a bit down. I'm not sure it's from my side.
Is Mr. Is I mean the one talking is
Sorry, Miss.
Mr.
Yes, the one talking, Mr. Ngumal. Sorry.
oh, okay. So my intention is just I want to improve my, my research. You see, it's already been done, but now we are going to submit a conference paper. But before I do all of that, I just want to see what am I missing,
Oh,
where
okay.
can I improve? Yes, yes.
Yeah. No, like I said, I mean the research also allows you to remember the steps, as we said. You can go forward, go backwards, collect some data that you feel is missing. You go back, you add, you interview people. So you are allowed to move backward and forward for as long as it's still within the realm of the research that you are doing. So yes, you can do all that. However, you need to always remember that as you do all this, you need to document the processes so that there is some kind of systematic observation, there's control, there's replication. Ideally, you then have to go back to the proposal and I said I'll collect from 100, but maybe now I'm struggling to get 100 or I'm getting more responses. So maybe I can increase my sample size. So you just need to look at what is the theoretical foundation for doing any of the things that you are doing, and you justify that work as you go along, if that makes sense.
No, it does. It does.
Okay, let me listen to Mr. Ngumalo. He had his hand up as you were talking, so I think you triggered something in him. If you can hear us, go ahead. P. Ngumalo.
Hi, Prof. And it's totally unrelated to the other colleague. So mine is a bit of a puzzle because I will be using data that's already collected, sort of like secondary data. So now I just want to find out if that actually forces me to use the quantitative method only, and also how will I apply the null hypothesis formulation. So I'm interested to know basically how is it going to apply to to my study if I'm only using like secondary data.
What is the difference? Can you take us through the primary and the secondary data so that we are all on the same page, and why a selection of secondary data, if I may ask? I'm putting on the spot now. Because you're saying you're going to use secondary data, not primary data, which is fine. But then if somebody was to ask, what is secondary data and how does it differ from primary data? What would you say?
Okay. Yeah, so well, I may have used the term loosely, but in my understanding, primary data would be the data that I would actually go out and collect myself, and secondary data would then be data that perhaps was collected by someone else for a different study or for a different purpose in its raw form. Then I can also use that data if it qualifies for my study, in my understanding.
Yeah, but okay, why are you going for secondary data then? I don't know what you are studying, but I just want to hear your rationale for secondary and primary data, and why, because first, before you get to secondary and primary data choice, you would have explained the difference between the two. Am I right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So can you then just share with us your understanding of the two data collection methods, so that we then work with you on the choice you've made?
Okay, so as I said, my understanding is that for primary data, I would be the one designing the instruments, and then collect the data firsthand for my study.
You would still be required to design an instrument on secondary data for collection, isn't it? Because you can't collect data without an instrument, both primary and secondary. Or am I missing you now?
I think
It's just the choice. It's just that you are not doing it primary. You're not collecting data primarily, but you're collecting data secondary. So the collection of data itself will require an instrument. So both approaches will have an instrument. Are we agreeing on that?
Yes, Prof. We agree on that.
Okay. So I just want you to say to take me through why the choice of secondary over primary. And yes, you are right that you are not the one who has collected the primary data. That's why the data is secondary. But I want to know, why are you going for the secondary data? Is it because primary data is not available?
Yes, there are constraints, Prof, in terms of the time and the availability of the sample for me to collect, or the population for me to collect the data. And also at this point, my supervisor is still working on clearance, which might delay me if I were to wait for ethical clearance. So I have to go ahead and in the meantime use secondary data, because also if I were to wait for clearance and then also try and source the population that I'm going to collect, then it's going to take more time, and actually my studies basically time constrained at the moment. So that's the only rationale. There is no other rationale that basically forces me to use secondary data.
Okay, I do understand all that, but is it your understanding perhaps that when you use, you see, the point I'm trying to push you on, Numale, is even on secondary data, as it is in primary data, you will still need clearance to some extent, right, to use it, because it's secondary data, but it's data. I mean, from a from a proposal point of view that you need still to be, or what kind of secondary data are we talking about here? Maybe let me. All I'm trying to say, all I'm trying to say is there will be a population, both primary data and secondary data, because you still have to have the parameters within which you are going to collect some information.
Okay. So let me maybe give you a background of what I'm studying. So I will be studying applications of machine learning in business decision making. So, and then so what I will be doing is I will get data and then basically formulate a hypothesis. And then what I'm trying to uncover is if there is a correlation in a positive correlation in using machine learning models for decision making, or there's none at all, or if it actually improves or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to source data sets that I'm going to then apply a machine learning model on to see if it's actually a positive correlation or not.
So where will you be sourcing your data from?
So I will have to source it on any publicly accessible data sources in South Africa, because my studies basically I've limited it to only South African context. So if I'm looking at data sets from within the country that are publicly accessible.
So you're gonna use, basically you're gonna, well, I'm trying to push for something here. So you're gonna use publicly available records on machine learning.
Publicly available records on businesses, and particularly on their decision-making processes. And then, so I'm going to be looking at businesses that used machine learning and the ones that didn't use machine learning.
So you're comparing are you comparing now those that are using and those that are not using?
Yes, and also to see for those that used machine learning, what was the extent of the impact.
So how big is this population?
So for me, I've limited it to South Africa, and I've limited it to small businesses. And at this point, I am in between trying to also narrow it further down to perhaps a certain industry, because even in small businesses, it's still,
Still
big population. Yes. Yes.
So where are you in terms of narrowing? Are you still working on narrowing down to, because to me you are now talking about comparative, some kind of I hear comparative analysis somewhere. You've got those that use and those that don't use. So there's a variable for those that use. You're comparing with those, those that use, and you're comparing the two as to, what does the use and the non-use has to do with the phenomenon that you're studying. I'm not sure. I'm hearing all those principles. So in other words, if you come to me, and I'm in use, you're going to engage my records, and you are not going to do primary source. But then you go to Godfrey, he's not using, and you're going to collect public records without engaging them primarily, and you what about triangulation there? What about the multiple way sources of information? Because I'm just imagining. So I'm saying if you've got the two groups now, let's say you narrow it down to a particular region in Gauteng, for example, and you're comparing those with machine and those without machine learning. I'm hearing you then saying you're going to compare and maybe contrast. I don't know. But how do you then triangulate the data? Because if you're just going to use public records, shouldn't you then it's even more now sound like you might require primary data? Because if you just use public records, how would you be able to triangulate that data to make it a lot more authentic? If you know,
Yes.
what is
Yes.
your strategy there?
Yes, that's exactly where my also predicament is, which is why when I started is with a question to whether does it now forces me to choose one methodology over the other, whether I have to now use quantitative only because of my choice of the data that I'm using, or I can use both. Does that now forces me to go and collect primary data, looking at the nature of my study?
Look, I don't have the detail. Let me not confuse you. I don't have the details of your study, but from what you are saying in summary is that you're going to have two. Basically, let's just say you've got two groups. Experimental A and B. The other one has got the machine learning. The other one doesn't have a machine learning. Can we at least agree that's the gist of what you're saying? Now,
Yes.
Now you then want to assess the two together. Basically, you just want to see the extent to which this intervention, machine learning vis-a-vis the non-machine learning, can contribute to whatever a solution that you're about to bring. So I'm saying, if you are using public records alone, wouldn't it limit you that you may make a conclusion either about the machine learning or the non-machine learning without having had the benefit of triangulation? Just to ask one or two questions for those who use and for those who don't use. Because remember, qualitative is not so much about the big numbers. It can be one or two. Just to understand whether what is in the public records is indeed substantiated by primary data. You see, when you use secondary data, the test for validation is much higher than when you use primary data, because when you are giving, I mean, you can distribute a questionnaire to people. That's primary data. They fill it up and they bring it back to you and you analyze it. It's primary data. Secondary data, for me, it sounds to me that what you are saying is that you're going to just rely on publicly available records. It's almost like reading annual report for companies and so on and so on. So I'm not sure whether, and there's nothing wrong in doing that, because you're already justifying that there's issues of time, there's issues of population, and so on and so on. You're justifying the reason why you feel you must go for that. But I'm saying shouldn't it be, I mean, if you're going to compare, if you come with a conclusion that then says, comparing the two, and your comparison is leaning towards favoring A or B, B might actually question the veracity of your research, because they may say, actually, you did not consider, what the management is working on. You might have and that's not a problem, because it could still be a review of your research study. But think about it a little bit more. I'm just not sure you really want to do secondary data. I think you may still want to do primary data in the main, because it's a questionnaire. You can distribute it to people. It's quicker. It's less. It's not expensive, and you can then triangulate that with a record, with publicly available records. So you can actually take what is primary data and compare it with what is publicly available records. Then you've got a much more stronger, credible research that you shall have done. But it's not compulsory that you should do it that way. It's just that the robustness of your study is also dependent on the methodology that you follow to collect data.
Okay, thank you, Prof.
All right, Mary, you've been having your hand up, and let's not deprive you an opportunity. Did we trigger something in your work that you want to share?
A little bit. Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much for the session, firstly, and for your team that have made it possible. I am busy finalizing my proposal for research, and pretty much like the previous callers or participants, I'm struggling a little bit to perfect what I think it should be. I know what I want to do, so I'll just explain it briefly, but I'm not sure what the process is, to be quite honest. I am researching the industry, aviation industry, and I am looking at historic data that I'll work over a time series module just to understand what the trend is for this specific type of aircraft that I'm doing. So the data will be made available to me through authoritative channels. It's the only place that the data is available. And then I will have to work with that data, clean it up, analyze it, put it into annual figures, and then work out what the trends look like. But I'm not quite sure, to be quite honest with you, exactly what I would call that apart from understanding a trend.
But I lost a little bit of in the beginning. I think there was some blip on my side. I lost so is that that's the aviation industry? Is it a particular aviation industry? Whereabouts?
It's a particular field of aircraft in South Africa. It's just to understand if the industry has declined or if the industry has grown, because reports kind of indicate one thing, but on the ground it feels like another. So it's to establish and put a pin in the ground. There is no research whatsoever in the specific field of aircraft. There are no.
So is it
at all?
For me, what you've just said now, is it part of what you've said in your background or introduction or some justification of why you're doing this research, that there's very little done in the area?
Absolutely.
So what is the focus? I mean, you talk about historical record, but what is your angle? What are you focusing on? What is your...
So the purpose of the study as an initial study is to understand what the trend, if there is a growth or decline trend in the industry of the specific aircraft.
What are you looking at? If we look at growth or decline, right? Those are your major variables. Now you want to compare whether over the period there has been a growth or decline. Are you looking at a particular period, or historical
so I'm looking
records?
at historical records for 1 decade. South Africa only, or registered aircraft to South Africa only.
Which decade?
It'll be from 2010 to, I'm trying to take it to 2022, but we'll have to have a look of when the actual stats are available, because CIA changed a lot of the systems. So I don't want to do something that's going to be very difficult for me to
but you need to be
access.
clear. But you need to be clear now.
Yeah.
I'm saying you need to be clear as to which period are you focusing on. Are you focusing on the period 2010 to 2022 or
20 to 2022? And I will have a look and see if I can get 10 years good data. I will like to take it out of that period. I've given myself a year either side in case the data is not sufficient.
Yes, but remember now it's a real case that you're talking about. So which period are you looking at? Are you looking, or are you still going to think about it that is 2010 to 2020, for example, which is a period of a decade? Or is it 2010 to 2022? Which is it? Which? The measure of the period matters as well.
Yeah, it's 10 years, and ideally it's 2012 to 2022. I would prefer to avoid 2010 because I know that there were issues because of the World Cup, etc., and it would probably not be a realistic comparison. So I would avoid using those years, but I would. So in terms of...
Why don't you use 2010, 2020? Because it is also another, it can also be another measurement of the decline or the growth, because then it's almost like, yes, I mean, sorry, I'm being, I think I'm being prescriptive now. So you might then say there was a spike in 2010, and this is because of the the World Cup, for example. Then there was a decline in 2020, perhaps is to do with COVID and so on. But in between that, you might, I'm thinking, what is your, I hear your concerns, but I'm not sure whether they're empirical enough for justification of what you're trying to do. I mean, if there was an exponential growth in 2010 and there was a phenomenal decline in 2020, I don't know, then you can talk about 2010 as to why the growth, and 2021 why the sharp decline. I'm assuming there could be, but I mean, I don't have the fact. I'm saying, what is your, why are you concerned about those that particularly 2010? Because there's nothing wrong with it.
Because
or
I know
saying,
that cap the actual registration process, and there were very strict policies in place that people weren't allowed to fly, etc., for a period of time. So I know that it would have affected the amount of aircraft that were registered in that specific year. So, but I do think you probably have a very good point. From 2020 to 2022, the figures are probably not that great to look at, although the system is much better. So those are
okay, let me go back to the data. So what kind of historical data are you looking at to determine growth or decline then? What kind of, I know you're still going to go through it, clean it up, make sense of it, but year on year, what are you looking at?
So there are monthly stats available, or figures available, that you can sift through, but it would include new registration of aircraft, deregistration of aircraft, and then an item called an ATF, an authority to fly. So anybody that already has an existing aircraft has to re-register it annually, and it doesn't fall into the category of new registration. So it would be 3 sets of data that would have to be put together to actually work out what the totals were.
I see. So does registration, deregistration, or authority to fly determine whether there is growth or there's a decline?
It will determine the exact figures of the number of aircraft that are registered in this country, which are in operation, because you don't register your aircraft or you don't renew it annually if it's not in operation.
Okay, yeah, but if you look at those three, sorry, I'm saying three, I don't know what you will call them, but those three, are they the indicator I'm looking at your research now. Are they an indicator for whether or not there has been, you would be able to determine whether or not there was a decline or a growth by just looking at the data from registration, deregistration, and say authority to fly, for example?
Yes, that's correct. That would ultimately give me those, it would be able to give me those figures. I want to, however, understand the trends, like monthly and annum.
Yeah.
I understand, because it does, at the end of the day, for further research, that will be very helpful, because you can understand when a new regulation was brought in, how did it actually affect? Did people stop registering? Did people try and register quickly, or, that kind of thing? So I want to understand the actual trends over 10 years. You can get an annual figure, which is available in annual reports from the CAA. However, it includes a range of aircraft. There's no definition of how, where the figures come from, etc. So it includes a variety of aircraft. So in order to actually understand a specific type of aircraft, I would like to actually put a trend together for that.
The more, if the more the aircraft are registered, does it indicate anything for you? It will indicate something for you. It will be a measure that you can argue about.
It will indicate growth. However, if people don't get an ATF every year, then it indicates decline. And those figures are actually not put together.
I see.
compared. So
I
if
see.
you've got 6,000 aircraft and you have 20 new aircraft that register in 2023, it doesn't mean you've got 6,000 in 2023, because 50 of them might not have renewed the ATF because they scrapped or they're no longer flying, or for various reasons. So the actual minus 50 doesn't seem to appear anywhere in the data. So I want to be able to put it together and look at a realistic trend of how the industry is actually grown or declined. I just want to see what the trend is over 10 years before we start scrutinizing why there might be growth or decline.
Interesting. So I should not just look at either registration or deregistration and make conclusions. I need to delve deeper.
Yeah.
All right. So now you're looking at historical data. Basically, you're going to look at historical data on registration, deregistration, or authority to fly, or not?
Correct.
Really?
Yes. All three.
All right. That will be an interesting trend, because basically there I see you showing a graph that month January 2011. You compare January's, February's, and it can even go to a month to month over the decade. So you can have it sounds interesting.
Absolutely. You can understand which trends in terms of a monthly, there might be certain months that there's a peak in renewal, or a certain month that there's a peak in whatever, or a decline. And then obviously annually, that I'll show the figures annually as well. However, what I'm doing, I know exactly what I'm doing with the data. I just don't know how to put it into the correct research terms. I don't know what it's called. And I'm sorry. So I've looked at a whole lot of things and I'm like, okay, so I'm doing a time series.
You've collected the data right now, right? You've got it with you, like from 2010 up to supposing 2020, for example. Is that what you're saying? You've got that?
I collected some of the data just to see how I will work with it, but I need to do I've got to do a permission form. They've sent me a form just to fill in to actually request everything.
Yeah.
So
you may want to engage a statistician, because what I'm hearing, and this is where, well, when you say statistician, is like UNISA will be able to provide you with somebody that can do the data analysis. Because what you need to do first is to make sure that you've got the same kind of data that has got the same values and so on. In other words, the registration, the deregistration, and the authority to fly as categories. And you need to populate that, across year, month to month, perhaps year 1, year 2, and so on. And they will be able to plot for you easy, graphs and analysis for that data if you've got it, depending if the information will look more or less the same. Because if it's a different kind of data set, sorry?
Can I not do that myself if I have the ability?
You can. I'm sure you can put that. Well, we are not yet dealing with data analysis, but what you can do is that, you just download some of the, I don't know whether UNISA has the SPSS, they've got an app, a tool for data analysis, or you can use Excel spreadsheet where you create year 1, month to month, and you can play around with the graphs there. It will give you a huge amount of joy to practice it. You can do it, but provided the data is correct, because if the data is correct, you can even put it on a because it looks like it already come readily packed for you. So all you need to do is to then populate, and you can create those categories. Like you've said, registration all the way, month to month up to 2020, for example, deregistration. So you can compare, contrast. But what might also be important is, remember, the data must be analyzed. What does it mean? Because if you say, well, we are seeing a trend of high registration in 2015, what does that mean? It might be meaningless. So you need to start getting a lot more meaning of what is behind that data.
Yes,
and
I'm thinking, but yes, it could be that could be another paper completely. Just understanding what I do about the industry, but absolutely, very good point.
Are you doing both? Are you doing mixed methods, qualitative or only quantitative? So you're not going to talk to any any person in the aviation industry?
No, I don't think that I need to in terms of understanding the historic data. And just
What happens
track
What
actual
happens
trend.
if 2016? What happens if 2016 has spiked? Where would you get the qualitative data to triangulate that? Well, the cause for the spike or the decline?
At this stage, my primary focus is to understand the trends. I would like to have all the information together and perhaps have more data than I require in terms of breaking it down to various types of aircraft. My primary focus for my initial paper is to understand the trends. I would like to save further research, for example, looking into the actual reasons, because I believe that it will actually take me longer than a year or two to go through all of them for 10 years. There will be spikes and there will be troughs. I know what some of them are from being in the industry, but in order to look into them further, that is not the focus of my initial paper.
Okay, makes sense. But just remember that the data, when it's collected and not analyzed, is meaningless. So it is in the analysis that there will be interest, because the analysis will have a meaning as to what are we seeing over the period. And I'm saying, if you look at the historical data and you are able to explain, because you see, if you are just going to tell us trends that there was a spike in 2015, there was a huge decline in 2019, for example, there was a flat structure in 2016. It's those will be trends, but then the question for research will be, so basically what, So but you're right. If you just take it from a historical data, it will give you those trends. But it may not necessarily explain anything other, unless you deliberately explain it from what information you have at your disposal at the particular time.
I certainly do want to analyze it in detail. My initial thoughts are that I'm concerned that I might bite off more than I can chew by committing to analyzing 10 years troughs and peaks in data.
Yeah.
That's, and I mean, what might happen is that if I feel that after I've looked at all the data and I can explain it, your research kind of evolves, and I would like to add that on if I can, but I think that might take me longer than initially thought. That's why I've taken it out. But absolutely, I think that's a great. I just don't know, when I'm working with the data, what am I calling it? I don't understand.
Well,
I know it's just analysis.
Yeah, it's I don't know what you mean. What are you calling it? What are you? What is the question? I'm not sure. It's data. Sorry. It's you call it, I mean, this data, you got it from the source, right? You got the information, you collected this data from the source, that you still have to process it in such a way that it makes sense, isn't it? So you still have to clean it up, but you got it from the source. So it's primary source, right? You got it from the industry.
Correct.
So, and that's quantitative data, because it's historical or research historical data. So what do you mean? What I'm not sure what you mean when you say what you call it. It's data. Remember, on the data collection chapter of your research, that's what you're writing about. Where did you get this data? How did it come to you in terms of the structure and the format and the character of the data? What is it that you still need to do with it? Those will be the things that you go through, like, do you still have to clean it up? Do you still have to categorize it? And I'm not sure. I don't want to mislead you.
I've kind of covered all of that already. I just thought that maybe there was some kind of a term that I can't find. I mean, I'm going to do a time series, like analysis over a decade, and I'll be specific with what the parameters are. Thank you very much.
That's to me, that's what it is. And obviously, we're talking data collection. Once you've done that, hence I was saying, you can even do yourself a favor, put it on a spreadsheet, work on the different categories. And if you've got the different industry, I mean, if it's the different aircraft and so on, you can even go in. The problem is that level of details are going to be determined by you. You want to do it via different aircrafts, and so on, month to month, year, that's all that you're going to have to, because you need to make sure that the data, first of all, is the capturing of the data in such a way that it's useful and meaningful for the purpose of analysis. So the capturing of the data is going to be quite a very, very intensive process, because if data captured correctly, the analysis becomes not easy, but it makes it,
But it's better. Absolutely.
Yeah, makes it better.
Yeah, super. Thank you so much.
But yeah, good luck. It sounds interesting. It sounds quite interesting, and we will probably bump into it in some of the published articles soon.
Yay, hopefully. Thanks a lot. Have a great evening. I'll be online listening.
Okay. Now, since we have now already spoken a little bit more about the different approaches, I hope you can still see the slides. For me, what I find easy for students is you need to pick the method that you feel goes with your each individual has a particular strong point. I mean, some people like qualitative more because it's more like their personality and their character. Other people like quantitative more because it's sometimes it's also to do with you as a person, what you find helpful and useful. So don't just quickly dismiss other methods. First go through them, understand each one of them, how they differ, and then you look at yourself and say, what is it that I'm trying to establish here? Because also remember, the purpose of your research determines the approach that will be appropriate for what you are studying. I mean, I was listening to you now, Maria, and I'm thinking, well, I would like to see which approach you have chosen and why, and how does that complement your personality as well? Because it's important to you as a student, and as a researcher, to say which approach I find a lot more easier to work with. And of course, you can work with all of them, both of them, but it's also important to say where you've got weaknesses, you can engage other opportunities that are available. For example, if you don't have a strength in data analysis, there's nothing wrong in you using I must just check with UNISA if they provide the SPSS, which is the statistical, approach to capturing data and analyzing data, because you don't really have to sit down as like the old system where we'll sit with a whole lot of a room full of questionnaires and stuff, and you taking it page by page. I mean, now we've got the system where it's pre-packaged, and of course you then have to pay for the license. So when we deal with the data analysis tools, I think we'll discuss that. But last time, what we also tried to do was to share the different qualitative research approaches that are available. It is up to you, again, to look at the qualitative approach and say, am I more comfortable with the phenomenological approach? Is it me? Do I feel like it's covering the work that I need to do? Because this one, it's of course, it describes the lived experiences of individuals about the phenomenon. So maybe you just want to get people's lived experiences. Very powerful, design, which involve conducting interviews. It may not work for you, but it might work for others. Grounded theory, this one, of course, it has got strong sociological underpinnings, but sorry, it involves using multiple stages of data collection and refinement and interrelationship of categories. So here you're trying to develop a theory that is going to lead other people into researching more going forward. The ethnography, this one comes from anthropology. So there is always an understanding of which approach of qualitative research is more strong in which field or which area of study. And it does not mean you have to be an anthropologist to do it, or a sociologist. It is just to explain that if you look at the qualitative studies are generally coming from the social science background, which is the reason why qualitative is a relatively new approach. in research, but it has given a lot more of credibility and validity and reliability to research, because instead of just dishing out questionnaires and not interacting with people, it now gives you an opportunity to listen to people in their most natural and in their most comfortable state that they might be in. So case studies, there's a lot of case studies that we are seeing lately, and this is also one approach of qualitative study which is becoming more and more popular. So they're bound by time and activity. For example, I've done this between this period and this period, and somebody comes and they study it and they make a case out of it. Now, when you look at the qualitative research approach, generally it attempts to understand issues from the viewpoints of the quantitative one. Quantitative is numbers. If you ever get to a stage where you now want to compare the qualitative and the quantitative, just remember, quantitative is obsessed with numbers, and it's obsessed with testing objective theories. From what we had earlier on, I was hearing more combination of numbers, but also not so much numbers, but more, like when I was listening to Numalo earlier on, that is going to, it's prediction, but it's also exploration, something that hasn't been done. From what Mari was saying, if something hasn't been done, that means it's groundbreaking now. So qualitative, it's also, giving you that opportunity to bring something, that is groundbreaking. But when you then want to strengthen that work, you combine it with quantitative, so it means numbers. So the 10 years becomes your quantitative. So in other words, you are measuring a certain phenomenon over a quantity, which is the 10 years. So 10 years becomes a number that is important. So somebody might come and study the same phenomenon, but not necessarily using the period that you are using. Or somebody might come and study the same phenomenon over the same period, but focusing maybe on a different element that you are not focusing on. For example, maybe passengers, I don't know, something more, more detailed than what you have done. This is what research does. I mean, it just produces more research. Now, when you look at the quantitative research approaches, again, it's two types. We've got one which is true experiment, the other one is quasi-experiment. The quasi-experiment doesn't necessarily mean anything wrong with it. It's just not true experiment, if you come to think of it. And there are also survey research. This one provides a quantitative or a numerical description of trends, of attitudes, or of opinions. If people were to be asked today where you are in terms of certain trends, and again, the issue of trends, you spoke about it now, Mari. So it's about either trends or attitude. If you are asked about certain things today, you might have different attitude than you will over a period of time, or over the past period of times that you've lived through in a population, in a particular population. So you must always remember that when somebody conducts survey, they just, they are looking at what are the trends then, what are the trends now, or the attitudes or the opinion of a particular population, which they will sample, over a period. That is the reason why you can either get cross-sectional or longitudinal. The cross-sectional or longitudinal is over a period of time, or the cross-section, which is different, mixing different sample within a population, with the intent, of course, to generalize from a sample to a population. If somebody was to be asked about ESCOM today, and the same person would have been asked about ESCOM 10 years ago, or maybe 20 years ago, their answers, their trends, their attitudes and opinions are not going to be the same, because what they will be experiencing as ESCOM today and what somebody has experienced as ESCOM then will be different. So survey, if you do it longitudinal or cross-sectional, gives you a perspective that may not necessarily be undermined when you look at research. So you need to understand at what point in time are we talking about this. That is the reason why even historical records or this study that you are doing is important, because you may find that if if you look at the period between 2010 and 2020, there's been a lot that happened in between, and you as a researcher now, you're just bringing that back to us to say, look, do you know that we had a spike in 2010 and this is the reason? Do you know that we've got a huge decline in 2015? This is the reason. Do you know? So it might be a 5-year period or a year-on-year or month-to-month, whatever the case might be. But obviously, over a period of 10 years, you're going to experience spikes and you're going to experience a decline and you're going to experience some flat lines, because this is how research, does provide for such opportunities. Almost like when you look at the performance of a financial institution over a period, there's no way that you'll find it as a flat line. You will get the spikes, the downward trajectory and all those kind of things. So it's understandable. But when you look at experimental research, here you seek to determine if a treatment influences an outcome. I was just listening earlier on to the machine, training that you were talking about, that you want to see if those that are using machine have got a better or a different, because there's a relationship issues that you want to determine here, whether machines or no machines have got any influence on any of the phenomenon that you are studying. So experimental research does give you that opportunity where you look at somebody with and somebody without. So again, you may look at it and say, okay, this is an experimental research design because I'm comparing, A and B, and it's a comparative kind of an analysis. You can also do a mixed method. Basically, a mixed method is where you use the elements of the two approaches and you bring them together. If you look at some questionnaires that you, I don't know when last did you complete one, you'll find that sometimes you get a quantitative question, where you are bound to say yes or a nay, and then you've got an option where they said, please explain. That part where you explain, although largely and generally people ignore it, they don't explain because like, oh no, I don't have time. But basically that's where you're trying to, the researcher is also trying to get the qualitative data cleaned from you as a participant. What do you think? If you go to some programs where people do evaluation of work that you do, sometimes they would ask you, what do you think about this? And now it's like, okay, this is qualitative. But sometimes they will just ask you yes or no. Do you agree that the timing for this is good? Yes or no? But then if they start asking you and engaging you on a brain, then it's more qualitative. So it's important to spot things like those qualitative and quantitative, because mixed method just improves, the quality of the work that you're doing. So here it's really just about systematic integration of quantitative and qualitative data. So it's important also, I mean, I've tried to say this earlier, triangulation, as another tool for research. When you're triangulating your data sources, I mean, I was just listening to you, Mari, saying you already have this data at your disposal. So all you're going to do now is to clean it up, brush it, and clean it up and capture it in a way that, so the primary source of data is there for you. But if you want and you want to triangulate, basically here you may just get one or two views from some of the people in the industry who might or might not necessarily be experts. It's not necessary, but if you really want to improve on the quality of the data that you are working on, it's important to consider triangulation. I'm not going to take you through the different types of mixed methods in detail, but it's important to understand which one are you using. Is it convergent, where you want to converge or merge the quality and the quantitative data to provide a comprehensive analysis? Or is it explanatory, where you first conduct quantitative research, analyze it, and then you go and you build it more using qualitative research? Or exploratory, which is the opposite? So sometimes what you are required to do is to work on two approaches. You first work on this set of data, work on it, and then you can go back and say, okay, now I know what I'm looking for, and either exploratory or as you said, explanatory, or of course convergent. So you can either use any of those. Before we move into the consideration for data collection, is there anybody who's got a question? And if so, I give the platform to you. We're still good. Any comment, any question? No question, no comment. Okay, what we're going to do now, I just want us to take a 3 minutes break, comfort break, and then we come back, we deal with data collect. Let's take a 3 minutes break, and then we come and do data collection. Now, this might not be relevant for those of you who have already collected data, but it might just be, assisting for those who are about to move into collection of data. Because in research, every step of the way must be thought through and documented in a way that is more of a record keeping, if you like. Every step has to be justified. Now, when you are going to collect data, you need to have a method that you are going to follow and a methodology that you have adopted. Now, there is no collection of data that can begin before you have presented your proposal to either a research committee or some kind of in-house structure that you work with. So, for example, as a student, if you are going to collect data, you may then have to present your proposal before your supervisor or the ethics committee or a research structure. Now, the such research protocol have to be presented also before because they are institutional. Part of your institution will have their own protocol, and if you go to another institution elsewhere, they may also have their own protocol. So it's not the same. How can I put it? It's not like you've got the same way of presenting, but at the end of the day, each institution will have its own protocol. So you as researchers, you need to be reminded that when you collect data from participants, you need to protect their anonymity, and of course you need to protect the fact that, you need to disclose the fact that you might be publishing the work that you're doing. So basically, it also talks to what you call ethical considerations. You can't collect data under a false disguise. If you're going to publish, you need to say, I'm currently collecting data, I've got an intention to publish this data, and your name and details will not be disclosed, and so forth and so forth. Because it's important that you need to think about that when you are going to collect data. And all what you can do really is you ask your participants if they are willing to participate. So again, it talks to, don't just collect data. If you're going to collect data from a company, an organization, that data is going to be made public records. So they have to agree with you on what you need this data for. So again, the issue of confidentiality of participants, very, very important. I shouldn't read your report and be able to tell who you have spoken to. Because remember, research, some of the research projects that people undertake can be sensitive, some can be financially damaging. So there's different type of research that people do. But it's important all the time to think about, how do I anonymize the identities of the participants. Very, very important. You have a responsibility to treat participants in the way that you want to be treated. Now, some of the approaches to data collection, this is just sharing, there could be a whole number of them. So it's just, for me, I thought we could just share some of these approaches just to guide and assist you where possible. Data and methodology are, of course, intertwined. So when you look at quantitative researchers, typically they identify few variables to study, and then they collect data specifically related to those variables. You study decline or growth, and you define what growth will look like, what decline will look like. You define what machinery intervention looks like and what no machinery intervention looks like. So basically, you have to have the variables that you are going to study, and of course, you don't forget that you've got the units of analysis, which is what you're going to use when you analyze your study. Basically, it's like your target. What were you looking at? So methods of measurement for each variable, of course, have to be identified. They have to be developed and standardized. Now, when you're going to measure growth, you need to say, what if this is growth, how am I going to measure it? If it's the decline, how am I going to measure it? Those must be developed and identified, and they're standardized, so that when we look at your report, you mustn't be looking at the report with no standardized measurements, no developer identified measurements. So you need to be able to say, if in a year you have reached this level, that means you have performed satisfactorily. However, if you have performed below this level, your performance is not satisfactory. So you need to have measurements. Data are often collected from a large samples, so it is presumed to represent a particular population. So generalization can be made about the population. Remember, what you see in a sample sometimes represent, if not all the times, in a representative random sample, it represents the totality of the population. So when you are going to generalize, it might be important that you consider the strategy that you are going to employ for sampling. Qualitative
Sorry, Prof.
research. Oh, yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Your slides are on my mobile device, your data collection slides, but they're not on my PC, and I see I'm not the only person that has indicated they are hidden. Sorry. I'm not sure why, but on my mobile device, on my mobile device, the slides are appearing, but on top, they're gone.
Oh. Okay, I don't know what that. So you are not able to see. You are not able to see the slides on your. Are you able to see them on the mobile device, but not on the other gadget? Is that what you're saying?
Correct. Absolutely, and I don't mind, but there are other people that have said that they're hidden. Sorry about that.
Oh, okay, not a problem. I don't know how to assist you, but what you shouldn't worry about is that this information we also share with Godfrey. So if there's a need for them, they can be available as well. Okay, let me proceed because I will be of no help there. Let's look at planning for data. You have to have a plan for data. Otherwise, if you go and you just collect data, you sit with it, and now you start the plan, it might be overwhelming. Planning for data can involve, let me see, so that I need to put this on the slide mode. What data are needed? Where are the data located? In other words, where are you going to find it? How will the data be obtained? How are you going to get it? What limits will be placed on the nature of acceptable data? Do you want all of it or some of it? In other words, you have measures that you will not need data if it deals with. So you need to be very clear. How will the data be interpreted? So you need to be able in your planning to say, what kind of data am I in need of? And where is this data located? And how will I obtain it? And how will I limit the nature of the data that I want to accept? Because there might be just a lot of garbage that can come with some of the data that you want, and that might be wasting your time. And how will the data be interpreted? Sometimes I find that people, sometimes researchers will ask for data, but they are not very clear as to what type of data they're looking for. Where do they think that data is? So you need to be very concise when you're looking for data. Is it data for this period, that period? Is it for this distribution of your sample? Is it for, you need to be just sit down and say, what am I looking for? Am I looking for is there a period in the data? Is there size in the is there location of the data? Because if they give you data that is national and international and you say, no, but I was only looking for data in my area, then it means it's the planning for your data was not as clear as it's supposed to be. And then once you've got it, how are you going to interpret it? But once you've got the clear data, you will know how to interpret it because you already, as you develop your proposal, work out the interpretation of the data. For instance, if you are comparing those with machine intervention, those without, you already know that you're going to do some kind of a comparative analysis. And therefore, you need to look at what are the areas that I'll be looking at, which are determined by the machine, so that you are then able to compare the machine intervention vis-a-vis the non-machine intervention. Otherwise, when you've got data and it's pretty much either the same or it's not the same. But it's not a problem. This is just part of the work that you should, get yourself into as you engage on this area of research. What are some of the data sources? So the methodology that you choose for a particular research problem must take into account the nature of the data that you're going to collect in the resolution of the problem. So you need to then look at what is the methodology and how does this methodology align to the data that I require to solve this problem. There are different sources of data, that we can go to town about. We're not going to go into details about all of them, but you can use interviews, there's observations, there's videos, there's documents, there's drawings, there's diaries, there's group meetings, there's memoirs, there's newspapers, historical documents, we spoke about them a little bit, and biographies. Those can be some of the sources of data that you can use for solving a problem. Now, if you look at interviews, for example, which is another instrument that can be used to collect data, is that there are basically three types that you can think about. And for some of you, you might know that some workplaces still use interviews as well as an instrument to select appropriate or so candidates for certain positions or job opportunities. So you look at unstructured interviews, you look at semi-structured interviews, and you look at structured interviews. All these are used in qualitative research. One of the most difficult aspects of interviewing, for example, when you are a beginner or a researcher that is still studying, is facing what is called periods of silence. Because when you are going to interview people, sometimes you go in there and then you experience what you call periods of silence. Now, interestingly, there are two German researchers who wrote about this. They've developed a style of interviewing, an analysis that takes silence into account. You can just imagine if you walk into a room, you're going to interview a CEO of some of the aviation industry, and boom, there's silence. Meaning you, as a researcher now, you need to be able to do some observation on the silence. It mustn't necessarily fluster you or frustrate you. Unstructured interviews, what does this mean? This is those interviews that are conducted according to a pre-structured interview guide. They are not structured. They provide the richest source of data for theory. So you walk in and you start talking first about, socially. I mean, what do you think about the Rugby World Cup? Then you transition into the Cricket World Cup. And you move into, so it's unstructured, but you still get to the point that you wanted to get into in an unstructured interview. So your participants are able to talk more freely about some of the problems, and they're able to determine what subject to talk about, at what pace, in what order, and to what depth. So basically, it's like the conversation that you're going to have with your participants. So unstructured interviews provide you with the ability to follow up during subsequent interviews. So as we talk, you pick up one or two areas that you like to ask more. So you are able to ask the participant to perhaps explain more or say more about it or clarify, because it's unstructured. It's not, there's no structure for it. There is what you are looking for, but it's in an unstructured way. So the use of the unstructured interview format does not mean that you have no influence over the course of an interview. You know exactly what you're looking for. You are influencing the conversation, but in a much more unstructured way. You've got your set of the main topics that you want to investigate. So I'm going to talk about this, I'm going to talk about that. So you've got in the back of your mind, you know exactly what you're going to be asking, but it's more like, it's informal. Non-verbal and verbal reactions may do not go unnoticed by interviewees. So in other words, when you walk into an interview, and structured or interview structured or interview semi-structured, it is not unimportant when there are non-verbal or verbal reaction. I mean, you walk in and the person is really scratching his or her face, putting things in order. All those are important from a research point of view when you are conducting your unstructured or structured or semi-structured interview. Semi-structured interview, it enables you to maintain some consistency over the concept that are covered. So basically here, some topics are chosen before beginning the research based on literature or practice. So you already have like a set of questions that, or should I say, concepts that you want to cover. So be that as it may, it's like, okay, we can talk about everything else, but I need to come out of there having covered the following. So many researchers feel more comfortable having a list of topics to fall back on, especially if you're going to be confronted by participants that are not talkative. I mean, if you come to an interview and you find that you are the one doing more of the talking as a researcher, you better have a list of prepared kind of concept that you're going to tease, because otherwise you may find yourself frustrated by the fact that there is a lot of silence. So after the questions on the list have been covered, participants are then free to add anything. So you may then say to them, look, I wanted to engage you on this. I think I've covered all what I needed to talk to you about. Is there anything else that you would like to add to the conversation? So researchers can ask additional questions to clarify certain points or delve deeper into a topic. So for example, you may find that in the course of the interview, there's an area that you want to delve deeper into. You are welcome to come back and say, look, this is what you said. Can we just have a little bit more conversation about? On the other hand, structured interviews are interviews that are conducted using an interview guide. Now here, it's almost like, we're not going to go out of the way and say many things. We just have, it's almost like as the word suggests, it's structured. So there is a structure, and I'm going to follow this structure. So each participant is given the same set of questions. So if I'm going to interview 5 people or 10 people, they will all be subjected to the same kind of question. If I've got 4 questions that I've prepared, although they may not necessarily be in the same room, or they may be in the same room, depending on whether it's a focus group or individuals, but they're all going to be subjected to the same set of questions. So it provides consistency, but they are probably the least effective means of collection of data if you're going to do grounded theory, because you are structured. So people are only saying the things that they are going to say. So this is for those who are currently working on their qualitative studies. So they will be required as one of the instruments to use either structured, unstructured, structured, semi-structured, and unstructured interviews. So for those of you who are really into qualitative, that is how we would expect you to collect data. I'm going to wait here now and pause a little bit and listen to how did you, for those of you who are in the qualitative data space, how did you collect data, or how, if you have not, what is your plan on the collection of data from what you've just heard now? Agatha, what do you have to say on the tools for collection of data, qualitative data in particular, that you just shared?
To respond, Prof, that there was a connection problem, the cutting, so I don't have information so far.
Oh, I'm sorry, your line is it's difficult. I couldn't hear you. So do you mind to repeat that?
I've got a connection problem.
A problem of collection or connection?
Connection.
Yeah, but I can hear you now. I can hear you now. It's better.
So I'm saying I cannot hear you properly because you're cutting. I just hear here and there.
Oh, okay. Now that I can hear you, what is your challenge with regard to the work that you're doing? Let's give you a platform then. Let's hear you out.
I will do my report next year, but I'm in a policing sector, so I will go for a qualitative research. But I think I will go for a structured interview to get the kind of answers that I'm looking for.
Why?
I think my research question will need that type of okay. I think for now, okay, let me give you an example of the topic that I'll go for. I don't know what they will say I must do, but I think for now I will check maybe the rapid increase of police misconduct and the reckless use of firearms or issues on policing in South Africa. So I think those kind of topic will give me to get answers that I'm looking for. So I will have to use structured interviews.
Oh, okay. No, fair enough. But why? I'm happy with the fact that you're choosing the structured. What is the issue with the other two, the unstructured and the semi-structured? What is your sense of those?
No. Okay, I think maybe I will see as I go along, but for now, I think what was in my mind is to use structured. There is no problem as such.
No, okay. So it's just for you, it's just a preference for now.
Yeah, for now it's just a preference. Then maybe when the next day I will see maybe what my report requires. Then it will guide me.
Oh, I see. So you okay? All right. No, I hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Mumalo, what you've spoken earlier. Where are you now in the? I know it's you were talking about quantitative, but if we were to reflect on the tools, the qualitative tools such as interview, but particularly semi-unstructured and structured, what is your reflection on that in the context of what you want to do, if you were to go with that?
Yeah, thanks, Prof. So yeah, I'm leaning more in towards quantitative, but I think as for the purpose of triangulation, as we were saying, I might need to develop some surveys to basically assist with the data. So I'm looking more into surveys than interviews for me, because it can give me more of an empirical data also. As because the interviews would be more qualitative, and I think for this type of study, it requires more of empirical data analysis.
Okay, all right. But if you were to look at the three different types of interviews, which one would you say you would be much more comfortable with if you were to use any of these tools?
In interviews, I would rather use a structured interview, because for me, it's not a matter of opinion. It's a matter of outcomes. So if I've structured interviews such that people are able to give me data on the outcomes of the phenomenon that I'm studying, it's not a social science kind of study. It's more of a, involving technology. So it's more of an outcome based and more of an empirical kind of answers that I'm looking for. So I wouldn't want somebody to think and give an opinion and so forth. So a structured interview for me would most likely be the suitable one.
Okay, all right, that's fine. Mari, earlier on, you were very clear that you're on the historical records, and that's what you're going to analyze. Having listened to the three, this tool, especially the qualitative tool for interview, what is your reflection if you were to share this with any of the students that might be keen on any one of them? What would you say?
For me personally, based on what I'm looking at, I would not use a structured interview if it was to understand the trends, purely because, you know, in the context of asking them why they think that has happened and give me your input, yes, those two questions might be relevant, but I would need to get different input from different people and then put it all together.
Oh, okay. So you'll be leaning towards semi-structured or unstructured. Is that what you?
Semi-structured, probably more unstructured, if I show the trends and then ask for views and opinions on why do they believe that that happened. That is what I believe that I would need to do. I would not want to influence by telling them what I thought. I would ask them what their opinion was.
Yeah, I agree. It's another option of looking at triangulating using the unstructured, because then when you say, why do you think there was a spike in a particular period, although you might know already because of the literature and some of the work that you did behind the scenes, it will be important just to hear them arguing the understanding. I think I would agree with that perception. However, there's nothing wrong also if you are already creating themes that you're just going to say, I don't want to go all over the show with anyone. I just want them to tell me the following concepts, because that's what you're into. So it's not wrong, if you also do structured, but it's just that you might get more richer data, when you are not structured with them, especially because there might be an element where people would like to defend their views at times. If you just confine them to a particular view, they may then feel that no, but you need to understand context and time and everything else. So it might just be a debate that may enrage. So the reason why it is important for you to understand the two approaches, ladies and gentlemen, is so that even if you have decided, correctly like that you are going with a particular approach, at least you are required to understand the difference between the approaches as well. So even if you are not going to interview semi-structured, unstructured, or structured, and you are just going to do questionnaires and stuff, you still have to understand what are the tools that the qualitative researchers will apply, so that you are not naive to a particular approach. Because one thing that we wouldn't encourage is a student who just want to do a particular approach and is like, okay, that's all I want to do and that's it. It's important for you to still understand the two approaches or the mixed methods approaches, even if you at your right time choose the approach that you need. Now, if somebody comes to you and say, I'm doing qualitative and phenomenological, and I'm now going to interview, you should be able to then say, oh, then I know there's going to be interviews, or, and then you realize soon that, look, the person is either having prepared, he might come to you and say, look, I've got a set of questions that I want to engage you. So you know where this thing is going immediately. But although you may necessarily not be interested in the qualitative research yourself, it is important also in your proposal to show that you understand the differences. And even if you pick up one, it's clear that you pick one because it resonates with either your problem or your approach or your, the solution that you're looking for. So the reason why then I'm spending time on the qualitative, so that when we move to quantitative, which seems to be what majority would want, is that it is still important to understand the two approaches. I hope it makes sense. And it is required in many proposals, if not all of them, that you demonstrate why you're choosing a particular approach over the other. For example, Noltando says is choosing semi-structured or structured. It might as well be that through reading and engaging of the work and the problem that, or the solution that she's looking for, she might actually turn around and say, you know what, I think I need more unstructured. I want people to talk more. Or, you know what, I think I need a quantitative study because I just want all those that are charged with misconduct or whatever firearm related issues to answer my set of questions, whatever. So research gives you that opportunity to keep on thinking. And of course, when you do think, you can always amend your proposal. So tomorrow, what we'll do, or when we meet, we'll spend a little bit more time on the quantitative approaches, but also look at the primary and the secondary data, because I think we did touch a little bit today, but we didn't go into detail. But I'm already happy that it looks like a lot of you are saying we will use primary data, because there's nothing that beats primary data, and then supported through research triangulation by secondary data. So that's what I would suggest we do when we meet again. So we'll look at data collection, but from a quantitative point of view, but also primary and secondary data. And we'll also try to look at the measurements, the scales of measurement, which I think are very important, and we'll conclude with the variables. I mean, the validity, internal and external validity. So let me thank you for really making time. Sorry about earlier glitches in the earlier start, but I want to hand over to Godfrey.